What's going on, everyone? Matthew here in the channel. I'm joined by my wonderful co-host and best friend.
Callum.
Now, if you don't know, you should know. Jake Paul, kind of the YouTube superstar these days, has started a boxing career, and it's not something that we usually talk about in the channel, but it's something that has both, I think, interested us and captivated us. And yeah, he recently fought five-time welterweight champion Tyron Woodley from the UFC in a boxing fight, which is interesting. He came out the victor in a split decision result, and it was an interesting card of boxing because it's not just Jake Paul and Tyron Woodley we're going to be talking about here. Tommy Fury, if you're a fan of Love Island, you'll know who Tommy Fury is, or if you're just a fan of
He
boxing.
was the only reason I was watching.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. And if you're a fan of boxing, of course, you'll recognize the Fury name, Tyson Fury's. I think he's his half brother, younger brother. So yeah, it was a pretty stacked card. It was a really good event, and yeah, we're just back to talk about it and just give our thoughts. We were going to do a kind of a reaction video on this, but then I kind of had a look at the times and stuff, and the card wouldn't have begun. The Jake Paul fight wouldn't have begun until like 5 a.m. or something. But so we watched the fight the day after, but yeah, bro, like, what do you think? What do you think? Because I know this isn't you haven't been a big fan of maybe boxing, but maybe
Yeah.
does this kind of whet your appetite for it, get you interested in it, so to speak? Did you enjoy it? Is the question really?
I mean, I've yet to watch anything mainstream. Everything that I've watched. Well, I suppose YouTube boxing is it's maybe. I mean, which one's more mainstream at this point? Because I
Well,
mean, you're
that's it.
taking,
Yeah,
I
both do
suppose,
massive views.
mainstream celebrities and putting them into the sport of boxing.
Yeah,
But the mainstream boxers, I haven't actually seen fights from really. Uh, and everything that I say in this video, it's all from a layman's perspective, someone who hasn't really watched any boxing. So if I get things wrong, please be kind to me. It's just my humble uninformed opinion. But I've seen some of the YouTube boxing stuff. I watched most of the Social Gloves event a few months ago, which I thought, despite them being, seemingly scumbags when it comes to paydays for the fighters,
yeah,
I thought it was a fairly entertaining event. I thought the matchups were pretty good. I'd say Gibb versus Taylor Holder was probably the most interesting one. I think we're all just a bit sad watching the Deji versus Vinny Hacker fight. But this one, I didn't know Tyron Woodley, and I think knowing the fighters and going in and being invested is maybe the better approach, which is why I'm buzzing for the idea of a Tommy Fury versus Jake Paul fight, because I think that'll be the fight of the century.
absolutely. That's something that really captivated me from last night because there was kind of a face off between the two backstage. I don't know if you caught that, but yeah, like, I don't know whose security team was straight in there, but they didn't really get much time to speak. It's kind of weird because the YouTube boxing is cheap. I don't know whether to call it YouTube boxing anymore because I think Jake Paul is a well established fighter on his own now, but I think generally like the YouTube boxing space has come on so far, like from what was it, Joe Weller and Theo Baker back in the day, and then KSI got involved and he really propelled it forward, bringing Jake and Logan Paul into it. So
But I
it's
mean, the
it's
the
fascinating
only
to
the
see.
only reason he achieved like the only reason he achieved professional status is because he was like independently famous from boxing, right? I mean, if he had just been an up and coming fighter with his past reputation of hardly any fights, he never would have had a professional title, presumably.
Yeah, I guess it is kind of like a professional title in name only because I don't think any of them have had like amateur careers or anything like that. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think the thing about this fight as well, we kind of saw that Jake Paul's opponents have gradually increased. It's funny because his first professional one, Gibb, at the time people thought that Gibb was shit, but like looking back now, he's really good. He definitely did better than a lot of the other opponents that he's fought. And I actually really like Anison Gibb, to be fair. I think he's really great. And then obviously Nate Robinson, the basketball player. Ben Askren was the first kind of fighter he had sort of battled with in the ring. And obviously he got KO'd. So this is kind of the first time he's been tested. And I was really surprised this lasted, the full 8 rounds. I had said to you, I think this is going to be a really quick knockout victory for Jake Paul. So I think it kind of surprised everyone because on one corner, a lot of people are saying, "Oh, Jake Paul, he's done really well here. He's really, he's got himself respect and authenticity for being a boxer." But at the same time, I think a lot of people are quite critical of Tyron Woodley because I think everyone would agree that he could have done a lot more here. He was really passive, really tentative. So yeah, it was a really interesting fight, but maybe not exactly action packed, I think is the word.
Yeah, I mean, it was 45 seconds in before anyone landed a punch, and
Yes.
it was a bit of a I don't know. I'd say the first two rounds, it was a bit of a tapping situation. I
Yeah,
didn't really
feeling each
think
other out.
the hits landed properly until the third or the fourth round, when things sort of got serious, when Jake got thrown into the ropes. But when it comes to expectations and what we actually wanted to see from the fight, I think we both agree that we want to see Jake get humbled a bit. We want to see him
Yeah.
probably knocked out. I think a first round knockout of Jake Paul would have been pretty funny.
Yeah.
But I think it was more satisfying to see it go the distance. But who did you want to see come out on top? I imagine Tyron Woodley.
It's so funny, Callum, because on one side of it, I really want to see this Jake Paul journey continue, because I think if he would have lost this fight really convincingly, there's a chance that you might not see him fight again, or definitely not as regular. So, and it kind of kills the hype train. Whereas with this victory, albeit a split decision, it builds that hype of, oh, who's he going to fight next? Is it going to be a professional boxer? Tommy Fury, maybe even like a KSI or something. Although I definitely think he's outgrown KSI, to be honest with you, unfortunately. But yeah, I think I really did want Tyron Woodley to win this, not because I'm a big Tyron Woodley fan. I'll be honest, I didn't really watch much of him in the UFC. It was kind of a bit before I started watching it. But he's still a really respected fighter. He was a world champion for sure. So it's crazy to think that like 3 years ago, Jake Paul only started boxing, and now he's beat a true fighter in Tyron Woodley. It's just that I thought Tyron Woodley could have done so much more, man. It almost felt like Jake Paul was the world champion fighter, not the other way around. It felt like he was the aggressor rather than Tyron Woodley was just so passive, and he really could have went in for the kill there, I thought, when he had Jake on the ropes, as you said.
Yeah, as I said, I'm not very well versed in boxing overall, but it did seem to me that unfortunately Jake did dominate him. I
Yes.
think there were a couple of times where it seemed that it was going Tyron Woodley's way. Even the commentators, were saying,
Yeah,
"Oh yeah, give
certainly.
that
Yeah,
round to
definitely. Yeah.
give that round to Tyron Woodley," and then obviously, yeah, the ropes was a big moment. But I mean, the moment after he was thrown into the ropes, Jake did like his tongue out, his classic
Yeah.
his tongue out move. I will not replicate that for the internet. But I mean, that was after he took a huge L. Like, it wasn't like a fuck you, I just beat
He
you.
has
It was so
confidence,
like
man. Yeah.
so that means it seems to me that means he thinks that that's something that's intimidating.
Yeah.
Whereas you're just like, stop being a knobhead.
Yeah. Ironically, that's like a Tyson Fury move as well. The old tongue wiggle.
Hmm.
But yeah, like mentioning Tyson Fury, obviously Tommy Fury was on the card as well. He was an
Hmm.
undercard, and it's interesting because I think his fights up. I'm not sure whether all of his fights have been like this, but certainly this one was just the 4 rounds, so it was interesting that we didn't really get to see much of him. How did you enjoy that one? Did you think that was more a more captivating fight, more enjoyable?
I was baffled as to why the British Commission wouldn't let Tommy do more than 4 rounds. I mean, what's industry standard?
I mean, a championship fight for a belt is, I think, 12 rounds, but I don't think they would ever expect, Tommy Fury to go 12 rounds. But I think if Jake Paul is doing 8 rounds, surely eight wouldn't be out of the question for him, you think? But I don't
Yeah, I
know.
mean, he's a professional boxer. Like, I have no idea. I have no idea why
Yeah,
he's not
no, I
being
agree.
expected to perform at the same standard. I mean, it did just seem for the whole duration that it was just kind of a swinging wildly situation, and it was kind of just like a drunken brawl outside a bar or something, which I think even the commentators picked up on.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, Anthony Taylor, they definitely commented on his lack of technique, but Tommy Fury, like, again, I'm not very experienced with the
No,
sport, but I mean, he didn't look like a professional.
no, I think you're absolutely spot on there, bro. To be honest with you, like I think you've absolutely smashed it because, uh, you I think a lot of people think, um, Tommy Fury would really easily beat Jake Paul, or Jake Paul would very easily beat Tommy Fury. I think it'll be a quite close matchup because although Tommy Fury has the more experience, both are still really inexperienced. Like I think Tommy Fury, has only a number of amateur fights before he turned professional anyway, and then obviously,
Hmm.
he went to Love Island, and that was probably a year out of his life with all the promotional stuff and interviews and sponsors and adverts and all that stuff. So he is quite inexperienced and he's still so young. I really do like him. I really do like. I think he's got something about him. And the same with Jake Paul as well. I don't like Jake Paul, but I do respect him. Like I think he's done very well. And I'd really like a fight between those two. Although by the looks of it, it does seem that Jake Paul has kind of got Tyron Woodley to do a rematch with him, providing he gets a tattoo, which I find quite strange. What do you think about that?
See, I just don't understand why Jake would even like entertain the idea. I don't see why you would bother. I feel like a lot, Tyron Woodley was kind of like, the second, the second biggest, pay-per-view event of all time. Yeah. Why, no other fighter is going to come close to that, that you choose to fight. I mean, I feel like a lot of people would sell more tickets than this matchup.
Definitely.
Tyron Woodley, presumably a big name in MMA, but in boxing, like I feel like the Love Island viewers would overwhelm the ticket sales for a Fury matchup. And like I don't think if Jake Paul had outright said no, and even Logan was kind of defending this. He's not exactly a coward for not wanting to spend his life doing rematches against people that he's already beaten.
And it was convincing as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Logan was like, "Oh no, he's above you. He's past this." And I mean, I do completely agree.
Completely.
The the rematch between Logan Paul and KSI made sense because it was a draw. You absolutely need a rematch to come out with a definitive winner. But I mean, why would you bother when it was such a such a a distant victory?
Yeah, completely, Callum. I'm kind of confused in the sense that it seems Tyron Woodley's so eager for the rematch. I can't really tell if it's for the payday or whether it's because he's got beat and he feels a bit bitter about it, so he really wants to beat him. I really can't tell. My head's telling me it's definitely for the payday, but my heart wants to believe that he's doing it because he wants to prove that he's the better boxer. What do you think? Do you think it's the money talking there?
Well, I mean, it was Jake obviously suggesting that there was the payday, and he seemed to say that he would. I mean, he seemed to imply that he would forego the payday just for the title. I mean, or just to have the match again. And I mean, I feel like you probably don't need the payday if you're making money off. I mean, presumably they're getting sponsorships and advertising money as well. So I mean, I presume he doesn't actually need the fight money, and he's probably wealthy already before this fight itself. I mean, I'll be honest. If they fought again, I probably wouldn't bother watching it. I wasn't thoroughly entertained by this. And I do think I need to care about both, or have a strong attachment, negative or positive, to each fighter to actually give a shit. So I don't think I would. I don't think I'd watch it.
Is there anyone that you would be interested enough to watch it? Like would a Tommy Fury Jake Paul fight motivate you to maybe be involved and watch it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't even need to be. I'm not saying Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua, but I do really like Anthony Joshua as a character. So I mean, I'd happily watch a fight with him and someone else I knew. So even if we went on to talk about boxing matches outside of the YouTube community, I'd be interested if Anthony Joshua was involved. I think.
Yeah, and AJ is fighting next month as well, so we could maybe cover that. But yeah, no, absolutely. I think Tommy Fury would be an interesting one as well. Yeah, it's interesting because I was reading a few of the comments and stuff, a few of the BT Sport videos, and one person kind of made an interesting point saying that Jake Paul's potentially found his level here, where like if it was anyone a bit better with a bit more of a killer instinct, he would have been knocked out from with the ropes. Like Tyron Woodley had a chance to put him away there and just didn't. So a lot of people kind of said if he had fought someone even marginally better than Tyron Woodley, he probably wouldn't have done that well. I don't know what you think about that, but does that point have any credibility? I'm not too sure. What do you think?
I think he did just have too defensive a nature. I don't think there was very little offense. I mean, following the kind of the seeming scandal of kind of Ben Askren, making away like a bandit with the money, with his like shit eating grin post fight. It is looking a bit suspicious. That these MMA fighters, which I mean, from my outside perspective looks like, you know, a much more cutthroat, ruthless sport
No,
than even
certainly, mate.
boxing. You know,
Yeah.
there seems to be a lot less respect between fighters in MMA. I don't know if I'm
Oh,
off base there, but you know, I think there
it's
is kind of
cutthroat.
I think there is a bit, you know, of a quiet respect between boxing competitors, but it looks like
Yeah.
MMA fighters, you know, you're going up against their opponents for the most part fucking hate each
Oh,
other.
100%, mate.
You know,
Yeah, definitely.
Conor McGregor seems to hate everyone that he comes into contact with. You
Yeah,
know, so
yeah.
I would have thought an MMA fighter would have a more killer instinct, and you know, Ben Askren and Tyron Woodley have both sort of floundered on that.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on. I think you're absolutely spot on there. Like, I'm really intrigued to see where this goes next, to be honest, because I'd imagine this fight probably sold loads of pay-per-views and got like, I would say these guys made easily like, you know, a million each, a minimum. Like it's going to be crazy.
Mm.
But no, I don't have much more to say on the card, mate. Anything from yourself?
Just a couple things. You know, I honestly cannot fathom where the split decision came from.
Oh
You know,
yeah,
if you
I
could maybe
know.
shed some light on that.
No,
I had no idea.
yeah, I thought it was a pretty standard unanimous decision, to be honest. Like I'm amazed one judge gave it to Woodley. Maybe it's because, you know, they kind of saw that he had rocked Jake a little bit. But I thought Jake, like, I didn't think Jake was fantastic. I didn't think he was, you know, amazing or, you know, a world beater, but I still think he did
Yeah.
enough to like win the fight easily, like, to be honest with you. I would agree with you on that one.
Yeah, because I'd say Jake hitting the ropes was the kind of climactic highlight of the entire match, but you know, I'd say that was probably only like Tyron Woodley's only shining moment. You know, I'd maybe
Yeah.
give I'd give that round to him, but of eight, you know,
Yeah.
I think
All the other
that's, you
seven,
know,
definitely Jake's.
what
Yeah.
one of eight. You know, I'm not sure that that'd be enough to sway a judge.
Yeah.
One thing that I noticed whenever I was watching the match, did you notice that Jake Paul on his shorts, it was like a digital
Yeah. It was,
marquee that had Jake Paul like
what was,
rotating.
what was that about? Like, was that there the whole fight or was that just at the end?
Yeah, that was there the whole fight. You know, it was just that his, you know, that his shorts were digital, and I was just thinking that's when, you know, you have too much money.
Yeah, I know. Like the amount of money that is when like that's the first time I've ever seen anything like that in my life. And it was like, yeah, it was a rotating just his name. Like it was that was so weird. It was like
Yeah,
it's like one of those like, you know, electrical billboards or something on his shorts. That was
mm,
crazy. Yeah.
like an old timey cinema.
Yeah, exactly that. That was weird. He's way too much money, man. Way too much money. Um, but yeah.
Yeah, when it comes to the Fury Taylor fight, you know, the number of clinches seemed ridiculous. You know,
Yeah.
it seemed to rival, you know, the Floyd Mayweather Logan Paul fight to me.
Yeah, like it's not really nice on the eye, you know, clinching it is quite, it's just like wrestling, to be honest. It's not nice to see. I know, and you're definitely right about the Floyd Mayweather Logan Paul fight. Like 90% of that fight was just clinching or just dirty boxing and wrestling. Like, and I guess from Antonio's perspective, I guess he kind of had to do that because like Tommy Fury is just that much bigger than him, and the reach is so, and you know,
Yeah,
he's got such a big reach. So I guess he had to
the
get in
reach is
there.
a
But
blessing.
yeah, I know. I kind of worry for Tommy Fury because like, you know, that guy is so much smaller than him, and the weight difference is bound to be so much that you kind of think maybe he should be putting him away. I'm not too sure. I think he was Jake Paul's sparring partner, so it's interesting. I'm
Yeah.
interested to see how Jake would probably feel about that. Whether would Jake have trouble with him in his sparring sessions, or does he dispatch him pretty easily? I'm not too sure. Um, but yeah, I think clinching and stuff, it's not nice to see. Don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think the win was fairly definitive for Tommy, you know, but I mean, there wasn't, you know, it's not saying a huge amount, you know,
Yeah,
when
yeah.
I'd say Anthony Taylor was probably doing about 90% of the clinching. So I mean, you know, I kind of had, I mean, you know, even the commentators sort of picked up on the lack of aesthetic appeal for the fight itself,
Mhm.
and I think if you had like flown over, I presume this was in America. You know, you know, if you flew over to America to watch that in person, I imagine you'd be maybe a bit you know, a bit underwhelmed.
Is like a live, you know, boxing match. Some like if you had, let's say there's the boxer that you were really invested in, like, you know,
Yeah.
someone that you really liked, or whatever. Like, is it something that you would like to see in person? Because I've never been to one myself, so I'm kind of intrigued. Like, is it something that captivates a lot of people? Like, is that something that would interest you?
Yeah, I'd say, you know, growing up, like I had absolutely no interest in sports, and I imagine that was sort of linked to my inability to perform them. You know, and I always imagined you know, despising sports, despite, you know, not really putting myself out there and watching enough. You know, and I've seen a couple of matches of stuff on TV, and they haven't really gripped me. But anything I've seen in person, you know, like the energy completely changes. You
Yeah.
know, your opinion of it. I think, you know, I think watching anything live is a completely different experience. And I think watching a boxing match live, and like, you know, really experiencing it, because I mean it is, you know, it's a very visceral sensory experience, I think.
Definitely.
And I think it would completely change my opinion, and I think the entertainment value would absolutely go up,
Yeah,
and I would
100%.
absolutely go to one.
Definitely. Definitely. But yeah,
Maybe
anyone.
maybe if we put on the gloves and beat the shit out of each other,
I'd like to
I'm
do
sure
like a
that'll get
charity
some
boxing
views.
match. I'd like to do a charity boxing. I think that'll be so much fun. Um, yeah. Yeah. Any more notes from yourself, there, man?
No, nothing else for me.
No, well, that wraps up another video on the channel, but a bit more of a different one today. Let me know if let us know if you like these kind of videos. We'll do more of them. And you know, these YouTube boxing matches aren't going to stop anytime soon. They generate loads of numbers and loads of money. So yeah, it'll be crazy not to just you know, make more of them. But yeah, thanks very much for today, Callum. I really do appreciate your time, bro.
Thank you.
And yeah, thanks very much, guys, for watching. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts in the Jake Paul Tyron Woodley fight down below. Who do you think should have won? Do you think it was the right call? All that stuff. And yeah, hope you guys are all well. Hope your family and friends are all safe and well too. Take care, and bye bye.